Hello guys, how are you? Welcome to this video of the week number 12. Well, we already talked last week about some preparation for the essay, right? We discussed about the outline, and we sort of created these two possibilities of a simple outline, one that has only one sentence or even just a couple of words per paragraph. And we also explored the possibility of creating detailed outlines, right? Those that actually have all the supporting ideas, so we can have all these different bases or support when we are going to start writing the essay, right? So, guys, we're going to explore today something about punctuation. We had already started this in a former video. We worked with commas, with periods, with some other ones, right? So basically we're going to deal with these ones over here, and with this you will have every single element that you require for start writing your essay, right? This is like the final topic that we're going to cover, and actually something really short. You already have all the elements that you require to write your essay. You already know how to compose a paragraph. You already know what are the parts. You already know that we're supposed to have an introductory sentence, the supporting ideas, the supporting sentences, the conclusion. You know how to write descriptive, narrative, and argumentative paragraph. You know all these punctuation things, right? So it's important that once you finish watching this video, and well, of course, I'm going to explain like the assignment. But if you haven't done that, start writing your essay. Remember that it's mandatory to have a like a draft that I can approve or change or suggest any other things, and based on this, we are going to approve or not, or let's say to provide a final version for your essay. Okay. So if you can be so kind and go to the presentation and open it on the slide number 51, we are going to see the apostrophe, sorry. Yes, the correct pronunciation is apostrophe. The apostrophe, and some of its usages. We are going to check 2 or 3 more punctuation marks as far as we remember. And well, as usual, let's take a look at the let's say the symbol or the graphic representation of the apostrophe, and then we have an example. No, over there we have that one that says this is John's car. John's with the apostrophe, right? So the first use that we know is the one that is really traditional. Let's say that most of you, or all of you, I guess, must know this already from the possessive forms. So with the grammar that you have already studied so far, I'm pretty sure that you already have seen this sort of usage of the apostrophe, and that is that one of the possessive forms, no? So when we want to say that there is an object, or a relationship of possession between one thing or the other, we can use the apostrophe. So if we want to say the ball of the boy, we can sort of abbreviate that, or say it in a shorter way, saying the boy's ball, right? And we have over there some other examples that had to do with people. For example, Tara's sister, so that will mean the sister of Tara. That will imply a relationship, not maybe of possession, right? Because you do not possess people, but a relationship of, let's say in this case, connection, or let's say blood relation, that is being the sister, right? My friend's mother, so that will be the mother of my friend. New York's nightmare scenario. So the nightmare scenario, or one of the let's say undesirable situations or undesirable scenarios for a city such as New York. Or for example, the final one in which we're talking about the moon's phases, right? These phases in which we can see the moon in let's say different presentations of its circumference in the sky. So we can see half of it, almost it, full moon, and these different things, right? So those are like really simple, right? We already know most of these different usages, so it's not going to be really tricky. Exactly the same for the other one, right? For the number 2 that you will find in the slide number 52. And is this, now we use an apostrophe in contracted forms. Yes, when we are going to contract the forms, when we are going to put two words together, yes. Basically the apostrophe is going to show us, or it's going to replace somehow the letters that have been left out. Yes. So for example, I don't know if you know, but cannot, like the one that you see over there, it is I mean, we can say can't as a replacement for cannot or cannot, of course. What does it mean? It means the apostrophe replaces the letters that are not there, right? So for example, in this case, the apostrophe replaces the letter N and the letter O, right? Because we have the word can, the apostrophe, and then the T. Same for they have as Dave, so the apostrophe replaces the H and the A. I would or I had can be replaced eventually as I'd, and of course that will replace, the apostrophe would replace H and A. It is or it has can be replaced as it's, it apostrophe S, and the apostrophe would replace the initial I in the case of it is, or H and A in the case of has. Or finally, who is and whose, and well, it will work in exactly the same way. Now there are certain words that sometimes are written with an apostrophe. Yes. Why? Because let's say that they are shortened versions. They are shorter or briefer than the complete word, right? Now, this is like I present this to you so you know. Nevertheless, they are not very much used in these days, right? It's just let's say for your information, this final one. For example, normally you call the flu, yes, to this disease that is pretty common, that we all have had, I guess, and that we know in Spanish as gripa or gripe, right? Well, actually, that is a shorter way to say influenza, right? That is the complete, or the let's say full and original shape or form of the word. So this shorter version, that is flu, can be written with an apostrophe. Remember that the apostrophe is supposed to be there to replace the missing letters, right? So it makes complete sense that if you're going to put influence, so there's a previous apostrophe. Nevertheless, most of the people do not use that anymore. Many people have just completely forgotten about the original, let's say, shape or form of the word. So they use flu without any apostrophe. Same, and this one in particular, telephone, yes, and nowadays we use only phone, but sometimes it was possible to use it in that way, right? Like with an apostrophe before to replace the tele part, right? But again, because of the usage of let's say modern usage, we use it only like phone without any previous apostrophe. Well, a final thing that we can see over here to use some of these different things is, for example, when we're going to use let's say the first two figures of the year are left out. That is also a possibility. So if I'm going to say 1948, as you can see over there in the example, what we can do is to put an apostrophe and use the 48, yes, to sort of communicate the idea that we are omitting the first part. Remember, the apostrophe is always going to replace something that is left out. So in that case, the apostrophe could be replacing the 19, no? And instead of saying 2020, for example, we could say apostrophe and 20, because everybody knows these days that we are on the 2000s. So that's it. Again, this is a choice. It's not necessarily common. Something that some people use, but if you find it, well, you know why is it, okay? Now, the usage number 3 that you will find in the slide number 53, it's pretty, let's say, use. Yes, we can use it a lot. So take a look at it and try to analyze it, because it can be a little bit tricky for some, no? So you can use the apostrophe to show the plural of letters and numbers, right? So we know that the singular of A, yes, of the letter A as in apple, well, is that one, yeah, A. But if you want to say the plural of that letter, yes, of the letter that is a vowel, the letter A, so you can use you can use the apostrophe and an S, sorry, yes. So it will be A apostrophe S, and that will be the plural of A, right? So singular A, plural A's. Just like in Spanish, that is also like weird enough. El singular de la A en español es A, y el plural serían A's, right? We don't use that a lot, but it's good to know, no? So, for example, we can take a look at the first sample over there. No? It says you should dot your I's and cross your T's. As you can see, we are using the plural of the letter I, apostrophe and is, and the plural of the letter T, yes, with an apostrophe and an S. So any other letter can have these ways to be pluralized. For example, imagine that you are correcting as a teacher, let's say a composition or something like that. So you can say your student, like, you had some spelling mistake, you were missing a couple of T's, right? Tuviste algunos errores, te faltaron un par de T's, right? Like maybe in the spelling. So that's important to say it and to use the apostrophe. Also, for example, it's pretty common to say that for years, as you can see in the second one, do you like the music from the 1950s, right? It will be los 50s, los 80s, los 90s, right? The 2000s. So we use the apostrophe and the S in the end, right? And also, for example, as you can see over there, you can use also an apostrophe to show a plural from of words that are not normally plural, right? So there are some words that are not naturally plural in English, even in Spanish, but for certain expressions it's necessary to pluralize them, and for that we're required to use the apostrophe. For example, in here it says your plan is good, even if there are lots of ifs and buts in it, right? So basically they're saying su plan está correcto, está bien, pero hay muchas condiciones, right? Con muchos escenarios que no son seguros. So that means ifs, right? Normally, if is a word that you do not pluralize, it's only si condicional, right? If. And buts. Hay muchas situaciones condicionales y hay muchos peros, right? Hay muchos problemas. So again, we don't use a lot of. We almost never use a pluralized but in this case, it's important to say it in that way. It's like when we say in Spanish, no, usted me pone muchos peros. Something like that, right? So, that is the use, guys, of this particular punctuation mark, okay? Let's go with the next one that is in the slide number 54, and it is the dash, okay? Now, let's take a look at this because it can be confusing sometimes, right? And is usually confused with the hyphen, right? We are going to study the hyphen in a moment. So let's take a look at it. You see, let's say that there are like a couple of squares that they can, the gray squares that are in the slide 54, they can represent like letters or words, and then we have a relatively long line that it's like in the middle of the words, no? So we have an example in here. In each town, the dash, London, Paris, and Rome, another dash, we stayed in youth hostels, right? So in every town that we visited, which one were those towns? London, Paris, and Rome. They stayed in a hostel, that was usually frequented by young people. So that is why it's called youth hostels, right? So let's take a look at this definition. Now it says a dash is a horizontal, right, line that shows a pause or break in meaning, or that represent missing words or letters, right? So those are like the main uses of it. Normally they help us to stop, yes, or there is like a suspension of the meaning in there, or sometimes we just use it to like to replace letters, like to let the reader know that there are some missing letters in there. Now, dashes are very informal, yes, and sure, we use them in writing, of course, but they are not that common, right? Like we would prefer to use commas or colons or brackets, yes. So let's say that it's important that we get to know it, but the use of it is not so common, right? Now, as I mentioned, do not confuse the dash that we have just mentioned, and you can see an example of a dash over there in the parenthesis, with a hyphen that is short, right? So the first use, and I think that this is the most common, I guess, is to make a pause or a break in the meaning in the middle of a sentence, right? Take into account that this same effect can be reached by using commas or by using brackets or parentheses, right? It's exactly the same. So depending on the level of formality of your text, you would prefer commas if it's a very formal, let's say, text. Or you could use brackets or parentheses if it's the formality is middle. And if it's an informal text, well, you could use these dashes. So let's take a look at some examples. It says, my brothers, Richard and John, are visiting Hanoi, right? So I am putting this information about the names of the brothers, Richard and John, between these dashes. Remember that I can do the same effect with commas. I can put one comma here and the other comma there, and it will be exactly the same. Or I can put parentheses, right? Remember that the key over here is that you can read the rest of the sentence without altering the meaning. So you could say, my brothers are visiting Hanoi, and that will be a completely reasonable sentence, no? The second one, it says, in the 15th century, dash, when of course nobody had electricity, dash, water was often pumped by hand. Same thing, it's like a parenthetical element we can omit that information and the sentence would make complete sense. In the 15th century, water was often pumped by hand, right? So that's it. You can use it with commas, or you can use it with brackets. This is just an additional element. The number 2 is that we can also use a dash to show an afterthought, like something that I think after saying something, after formulating or producing a statement, and then I mentioned something about that previous statement, right? So we have the first one over here. For example, it says sorry. The first word was supposed to be world's last word. Dash the word to end word. Okay. So when unfortunately First World War was started to be in struggle or fought, everybody thought that that was going to be the final war in humanity, right? So that is why it was called the word to end war, or the word to end or all wars. So that is an afterthought. Now, after you announce an initial thing, there is like something additional over here, right? Then we have another example. It says I attach the photo to my email, and then there's a dash. At least I hope I did, right? Like I attached the photo to my email, and then you have an afterthought. You say, oh, did I really do that? Yes or no? I don't remember very well. So at least I hope I did it, right? So that is an afterthought. Again, it's something that maybe that can be somehow replaced by some other figures. Now, in the number 3 and the number 55, we have that we use a dash like a colon to introduce a list, right? So we have, for example, 30 places I'll never forget, dash, Paris, Bangkok, or Hanoi. Yes, it has exactly the same function of a colon. Colon, remember, that is dos puntos, right? Don't forget to buy some food, dash, eggs, bread, tuna, and cheese, right? So those are possibilities, not to introduction, to use it exactly as a colon. And then number 4, we can use the dash to show that letters or words are missing. Yes. So for example, we have over there a really rude word, the F word. So if we are somehow forced to use it in a formal text, because I don't know, it's a journalistic, for example, and you have to be objective and say exactly what the person said, even if it's offensive. Well, you can minimize that rude expression by putting it over there. No, they are really fucked up. So we're going to use it in that way, like to replace these different words. Or, well, the other ones that you know very well, that will be basically fill in the gaps exercise, or fill in the gaps activities, right? I will look, and then a dash, and the children, right? So you're supposed to complete. It will be for the children. So this, of course, can be done with this dash, or maybe some people use an underscore. Underscore is like raya al piso, right? That is like the ones that we normally use. But that's it. Okay. Well, guys, thanks a lot. So in the next video, I'm going to explain the final punctuation mark, and I will explain the assignment that we will have for this week. Okay. So thank you very much. See you in the next video. Bye bye.